opt for switch case, which is basically alternative to if else conditions. So we will see that today. It's very easy than if else if you actually have some hands-on, practice. So for example, I need to print the weekdays of a week. Okay, so the 1 stands for Sunday, 2 stands for Monday, and so on and so forth. So there are how many if conditions if I have to provide? 7, right? So if I enter 1, print Sunday. Okay, if variable equals 2, integer variable equals 2, then print Monday. Else if 3, Tuesday. Else if blah 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 until else if 7, Saturday. So this is very basic example, but it will let you make you understand the concept switch case. So in this case, I would simply opt for switch case. So I saw the multiplicity of if and else. Then instead of using if and else, I would simply go for switch case. That's how you should decide what to use and when to use. Okay, so the syntax is simple: switch your variable, okay, and case. All right, case is when if a equals to 1, that's what it means. Then do something. Okay, I want to just print something to console. Okay, so if a equals 2, okay, that is determined by case 2, then do something. So always case 2 colon. So this variable must be according to what type of variable this is. If this is a string variable, then you have to put this in quotes. All right, if that is string variable. Otherwise, you just follow the integer type. So in this case, it would throw simply error because the type mismatch occurred. Okay. So likewise, you continue until case 7. Case 7 would be Saturday. Okay. And if user enters any other number other than 1 to 7, you have to deal with that situation too, right? So in that case, default case must be defined. So this is mandatory. And default case would be anything. So you can say, hey, please enter the numbers from 1 to 7 only, or something like that. And every time if you observe, we are breaking out of the case. So this means to say that if case equals to 1 is a match, a equals to 1 is a match, do this and do not perform any operations on these. That means do not process these rest of the lines and break out of the switch loop. So the loop is this. So once, for example, if I enter 2, it will go there, it will perform this, execute this, and it will break out of here. So it will come out here directly. So in the same way, if I do not enter any number from 1 to 7, that for which the cases are defined, it would directly go for default, execute this, or print this, and break out of the loop. So that's how the switch case works. So let's execute and see how the output comes and how it is executed. All right. So I have created a function for switch case called weekdays. So weekdays function will simply take a number and print the weekday name. So if I enter the weekday number, it will print the weekday name. That is the whole purpose of this method. So let's call this method in a test class. Okay, test package. That's what we have been doing, right? The library in libraries and test is in test. So let's go to test and execute this. Okay, so I instantiated the conditions class and called the weekdays and entered what? Entered a number. So does it satisfy the number that we have defined cases for? Let's find out. So let me execute and see what is the output that will be displayed. So let's see. So what do you think the output would be? Any guesses? You can just guess and keep it in your mind. And let's find out. So first time when you run it, builds a workspace. So that's why it takes little time. Then when it is 100% built, it will run. So what is the output? Please enter any number from 1 to 7 only. So obviously it entered which case it did enter. It entered the default case because I did not enter any number from 1 to 7 because cases are defined only from 1 to 7. So let's change the number and see. So let me enter 7. Okay, so let me rerun and see what the output would be. So you can guess what would be the output. You can say what would be displayed if I run this. So you can see building workspace. See, every time you run, it has to build the whole project. The whole project will be built and then it will execute. So there are some build tools like Apache ANT here. Okay, so you can have, but that is not really required right now. And you can also build using Maven. There are different build tools. JBoss. JBoss is for development perspective. Okay. So what is the output and is the output correct and how it is executed? Weekday 7. So 7th weekday is Saturday. So did we execute it successfully? So when I enter 7, the output is Saturday. So we did execute it successfully. So that's how it works. So the whole purpose of this is to demonstrate the usage of switch case. Okay. So now you know how to use, when to use, and where to use. So when to use switch case, if there are multiple if else involved in the logic, okay, then you would go for the switch case, obviously. So the syntax would be so and so. You already know switch case, blah blah blah, case, this case is. Okay, let's just for your understanding, we will create one more switch case and see. Okay, so I'll give you one more example. Like my example would be, let's take a string type switch case. Okay, instead of integer type, so let's take a string type. Okay, nested ifs will look like this: a greater than b, then if a is greater than b. So this if, this inside if is inside this if. So in order to avoid this situation also, we can go for switch case. So first I'm checking if a is greater than b. Okay, then I'm checking a is greater than or equal to b. Okay, which is a sub part of this a is greater than b symbol. So the whole this inside if is involved inside the outer if. So this kind of ifs are called nested ifs. So which becomes cumbersome again. If we lose track of these brackets, then we might mess up. So in which case switch case is separate, everything is separate, so we can go for this. Okay, let's have an example. Can anybody tell me the example? We will write a function for it. Okay, anyone? You can come up with an example. I mean, not out of the box, just think how we can put it into switch case. Yeah, so we can go for months.
Month.
Sorry, yeah. What is it?
We can go for month.
Okay, you said the same thing. Okay, great. Okay, you are thinking the same. Okay, so let's take a month. But instead of entering number and printing the month, what I would do is I would enter the month name, and we will display what the month number is. Like January, if I enter, it has to display this is the first month, and so on and so forth. Okay, so that is to demonstrate the string type of switch case. Okay, mostly it is which is used, so I will cover that too. So write program to display month number when month name is passed as a parameter using switch case. That would be okay. Now I have to create a function public, okay, so that I can access in other classes like test. I have to access this function in math test, right? So public void, because I don't have anything to return. So you can also enter string, that's up to you. Okay, you want to return something? You want to take that example? Let's take that example. I am returning string, and this will be called month. Just month, and I am entering string month name. Okay, so that is my function declaration. Okay, I just declared the function. Now what I'm going to do, I'm going to define the function. That means I'm providing the inside body stuff inside it. So that involves obviously the logic and some syntax is thrown into it. So that's how you define a function. Okay, so tell me, how would I define? First and foremost, whenever you enter return type other than void, it throws error, there is no return type. So if you hover over it and find, it would say return type is missing. So you can add it later, or you can add it right away so that the error is gone. So let's add it right away. Return, I just want to return. Let's say. Okay. So let's declare the output also, the variable output, which is a string output, and I'm initializing it to null. All right. So the return type is set. Let it build completely. I think this is taking time because of the git. It's computing git status every time. Then building. All right. Okay, so let's write down the logic. So switch. You can just press shift space if you want to fill the lines, fill in the lines, so that you don't have to remember the syntax and everything. So I just write switch and control space. Okay, then automatically it will give you suggestions. What syntax do you want? If there are multiple usages of syntaxes, then it would show all the things. Okay, one more time. See, switch case, there are other, but I would go for switch case statement. And if you just hover over it, it will show this. So this is exactly what we have used in our previous example. Switch key case value. So key value pairs every time. Case value, define something in this blank, breakout, and repeat this cases value break. Then finally default and define something breakout. Okay, this is the whole syntax. So I can just choose this. It will fill in for me. Or if you remember, you can write it down. So I would prefer this so that I don't have to remember. You can more concentrate on the logic part against remembering the syntax and everything. Okay, but I would suggest remember the syntax because in interview they might ask this question. Okay, so what is my key? Obviously my key is month name, isn't it? The key is month name. I am inputting, that is a key. Keying in, that's what you call. So I'll just make this. So auto ignore derived resources, why it is checking. Okay. And value, so I want to enter value. First value is string, so January. So what do you want to print if I enter January according to the query?
Month of 1.
Okay, let's define output because we are returning output, right? So let's define it, print it out outside. Okay, so I want assign output. It is a string, so instead of sysout, I'm just returning so that you can also learn about return types. So I'm setting output equals elaborated fashion, so you can print whatever you want to. January is the month, something like this. It's not necessary you have to have this kind of only. You can define whichever you want to. Okay, so then breakout. Okay, case if I enter January. Okay, and remember that this is a case sensitive. Java itself is a case sensitive language. So exactly J has to be capital and all the rest of the letters have to be in lowercase. Then only this output will be displayed. If you enter small j, then it will go to the default case. Remember, so exactly it has to be January. Otherwise, it won't work. So you can ignore case later, but for the defining purpose here. Yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this case 12 times and repeat the same thing. You can do the same. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Right. So every time say appropriate month name and I'll display what the month number is. Simple task, no complications. February is okay. Let's just put the number instead of second month. Oh, March then. Oh, we forgot this, right? March. Okay, so don't worry about the errors yet. We are going to get rid of errors at the end of it. Since you are repeating the same cases, it won't allow you, because you're saying as if x equals to, if x equal to 1 and then if x equal to 1, so you don't have to repeat that, like case January and case January. So you have to have different cases, unique cases every time. April, May, then here June. Okay, so we forgot to put the number of May. So May is which month? 5th month. This is June. So I am saving in between every time so that I don't lose work if it is closed. So you have to do the same. Some tools have auto save option up turned on, so in which case no problem. Just to save your work, you keep on Control or Shift S, save all, Control Shift S. Okay, last one. Month. Okay, then we have to also define the default, because it acts similar to else part in if else. This is not mandatory. Even if you skip default, it won't throw any error, but it would be nice to have this condition, because in case I enter d small sembar, okay, so then it doesn't match, so obviously you have to have a default case, default case to fall on. So let's have the output equals, please enter correct month name with initial capital letter. Okay, so that would be my user message. So this will be printed if I do not enter the proper month name with the initial capital letter. That will be printed to the console. I mean, it won't be printed as of yet.
Yeah, November.
Yes, go on. November is spelled wrongly. Yeah, I'm going to correct it. Thank you for November. Is it correct now? And what about the topmost? November. Yeah, that is perfect. Okay, so everything else is correct. Just check August, July. Yeah, if there are any typos, you will find out in the execution debugging. So, okay, so we have the function ready. Now we are going to call it from the test or test case. That's my test case. Math test is my test case. Okay, so how do I call this? Connections instance name is con dot month. So that's a month, and month name it's asking. So let's go for the positive case, then we can go for the negative case. One positive, one negative, so that we can see. I mean, it's not negative, it's a default case. It will definitely go for default case because we covered it. Okay, so now if you look at the function itself, it's not going to print anything, right? Because we didn't insert any sysout system.out.println. So I just wanted to show you how to return and utilize this in the test class. So it is returning string. So in order to print it, we have to take care of the printing part from the test. Okay. So let's always, whenever the function is returning something, you have to store that in that type of variable. So what type of data is being returned here? String type of data, right? Now I have to store it in a string type of variable in order to extract it or utilize it further in the rest of the program. So I mean, I'm going to call it month info. Now I have to print it separately. So if I want to, so this is another way of doing it. You can also insert the sysouts in the switch case itself, but I just wanted to show you a different example. So I'm gonna print out the month info in the test itself. So logs you can have in the logs utilities, or you can separately log in the test. So it's similar to that. In automation, we are going to see examples of logging, which is important because logging is for reporting purpose. Whatever we execute, nobody knows what we executed unless and until we log it and report the same. So it's very important. So I'm just gonna print the month info, that's all, because month info has everything, what the name of the month is and what the number of the month is, right? So we don't have to worry. Again, we don't have to write, hey, the month name and month number is one. So let's go and execute this. Okay, so January is the first month. So obviously you can try out more data with different JSmall, and you can enter something other than our months Jan to December and see what the output comes as. So that is, we can play with that. Okay, so let's move on to different concept. So I just wanna okay, so far we have seen conditional structures using if else, if else, if else, and switch case also. That is also one type of conditional structure, right? Now we will see how to repeat. We have already seen some repeatable loop operations. Okay, so how do you achieve the looping? Anyone? If you want to repeatedly do some operation, how do you do it in Java? Using for loops, right? For loop enables us to perform any operation in a repeated fashion, isn't it? Without having to repeat the lines themselves. Okay, so here I just want to print something to the console, right? 1,000 times or so. So Otherwise, if we don't have for loop, what I have to do? I have to repeat this 1,000 times. System.println 1, system.println 2, 3, 4, blah 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 until 1,000, which is ridiculous, right? That is not the correct programming. So what would we use? We would use for loop. So hey, I just wanna do some operation, so and so operation, and I want to repeat this operation until some condition is satisfied, and from so and so start to so and so finish line. Okay, that's all we had to specify. So the for loop is the best bet. Okay, there are different loops, while loop and do while loop also, but for loop enables you to initialize and make condition and increment all in one line. Okay, so the syntax you already know, we already seen. For integer I equals 1, that is my initial condition, and how far I want to go, I less than or equal to max number to display from 1. Okay, so I can specify the max number and increment each line. What is I plus plus or I minus minus, I is equal to I plus 2, or you can increment whatever you want to increment to, and whatever I want to do, I just want to print out to the console. Okay, so using for loop we will see. So display numbers, it will take an integer as argument and do something repeatedly. So I just want to print 1,000 numbers starting from 1 and incremented by. So okay, so we will see one by one. Okay, so I don't want to comment this out again, so just look at the last. So these concepts are important, not just for Java, but also for automation. So you need to focus. Output is come. Okay, output is displayed 1 through 1,000. Okay, that's not the point. Point is how did we achieve this? Okay, I mean, if you are given a similar question or similar situation, how do you achieve this? The for loop will enable you to achieve this. So using for loop, I can display numbers repeatedly. So you can apply the same concept to any example. So all you have to think is when to use it. So if you know the concept well, you would all automatically know when to use it, and how to use it is syntax. When to use it is your intuitiveness tells you, okay, suddenly you have to immediately tell when to use the for loop, and what to use, of course, given the situation, what to use. If you are given like a similar situation, if and else, in which case you have to you should be able to choose what to use right then. So that comes with practice, so I would recommend you to practice more. Okay, so let's go for minimum of 2 numbers. We have already seen. I'm just reiterating them so that you can recall them. All right, so I'm just moving this block comment down. All right, so conditions, it's already instantiated, so I don't have. Okay, this is a different instance. You can't. Okay, so you can always have different instances but not the same instance. Okay, so minimum function you already know, so this will enable you to choose minimum out of 2 numbers. So how do you achieve this? You already know. How do you choose a minimum of something? What is the Java concept, Java logic you are going to use? If and else, right? You have to compare. Whenever you have to compare, you have to choose if and else, right? Whenever you have to repeat something, you have to choose for. That's all you have to do. Okay, so let's display numbers using different for also, because I forgot to show you while and do while. Okay, so while max number, similar situation. Okay, it takes every time I save it takes 10. That's fine. Okay, so first example is using for loop, and second example is using while loop. Same thing. I'm not going to change anything except for changing the system out line itself. Okay. Okay, to turn this off, build workspace every time it is building. This is actually annoying. 25% to wait 100%. Okay. Okay, let me remove the comment for all while and do while so that we can see all at once. Okay, so the comment is still here. Okay, so if you want to see the whole example very clearly, you can just maximize this, okay, because this sub windows are blocking your view, right? Or let me just, this we don't need anyway, the outline. This outline tells you what are the different variables and methods that are declared and defined in a class. And we don't need this also, the left side, project explorer. So I can just move it a little left. Now we have bigger space to view and perform. Okay, so now we'll just achieve the displaying number example using while and do while also, and then move on to different examples. Okay. It is not responding. Okay, so close this. Okay, so while while displays only while, what is the condition? So what we are lacking here is the initial condition and the increment itself, right? So initial condition we have to display. What is the initial condition? What do you want to start with, I or something? So I would just display integer and equals. Okay, this time I will take different number. Okay, so I want to display from 100. Okay, instead of taking same example, I'm just taking different example just for the sake of showing different example. I want to display from 100 to 200. Okay, so 200, and you have to increment. The increment line is missing. The for loop takes care of all the three things at the same time, but while loop doesn't. So you have to first initialize the initial value and then condition, and then do whatever you want to do, and then what do you want to increment? Every time you have to increment something, right? So increment is equal to, let's say 2. Okay, I want to display 100 and then skip 2 numbers at the same time, 100, 102, 104 till 200. Okay, so that's my query, just for the sake of having different examples, that's all. Okay, so let's also go for do while loop and execute all of them at once. Okay, so the main purpose of using do while loop is to skip the first condition. So if you see the do while loop syntax itself, I'm not checking the condition in the beginning, am I? So I'm directly executing, then from the second time onward I'm checking. So that's why, unlike the while has the condition in the beginning, do while has the condition from the second time. So first time is nothing, so it directly executes without checking the condition. Even if it's not greater than 1000, it will execute. That is the whole point of it. So you should be able to choose do while when similar question is asked or similar type of situation is posed in automation or development, wherever. Okay, so I'm going to change while do, and I'm gonna copy the same sys out I Okay, I think we'll have this example afterwards because it's gonna throw conflict with this one. Okay, and I will also comment this guy. So if you look at this, for loop doesn't have any brackets because this is a single line for loop, right? So if you have multiple lines in the for loop, you have to put definitely the brackets, otherwise it will not repeat the second line onward. Okay, so let's go to math test. Run it. I can actually close some of this in order to. Okay, now I can get more space right here. So what's going on? It's probably going into the infinite loop, isn't it? So let's kill this, otherwise it will continue to display those numbers infinitely. So let's see the logic. Okay. Okay, so obviously the console is limited, so we can increase the console because it is limited to some number. So you can do that, but using the preference you can display 10,000 lines or whatever. But what's going on here in the display numbers, let's go and check. Okay, so we displayed 100. Okay, so see here, greater than 200. Okay, so it has to be less than 200, right? While less than 200, I want it to perform, so it is just going beyond 200. So that's not what we wanted. So look at the example again, and what do you want to achieve? Okay, which are very important. So what I want to achieve is I want to display numbers starting from 100, skipping 2 numbers every time until 200. Do not go anything beyond 200. So my condition was max number to display is greater than 200. Okay, I don't want that. I want to print this number while max number is less than 200. Okay, so that's greater than 200 means it's just going beyond. It will continuously display. That means it went to the infinite loop. So let's rerun this. Did we save it? Yes, we did. Oh, okay. Wait a second. Max number is I is equal to 100. Max number to display from is okay. So max number to display was 1000, right? So 1000 is less than 200 is not satisfied. So obviously it did not display anything. So let's actually put 150. Oh, it is still going. So let's have the condition checked again. So I is equal to 100. Okay, can anyone find out what is the logic that is missing here? It is going beyond.
So I think I think if you can use if you use for loop, still you could do the same thing, isn't it?
For loop is fine. So we want to use while loop and achieve the same thing. How do you do it? So the logic is here simple, right? Same condition, I less than or equal to this thing. Instead we put max number is less than 200. That is the logic, flaw in the logic. It doesn't change anything except for the syntax itself. So syntax is this, and you just have to initialize separately and increment separately. Okay. Now it's going to display 100, starting from 100. That is my initial number. And then go until max number to display, skipping 2 at a time, like even numbers every time, 100, 1 or 2, and so on. So odd numbers will be skipped. Okay, so let's read on this. Okay, so since I gave 150, it went till 150. So see, if I give 200, it will go on till 200. So successful. 100, 102, 104, 106 until 150, whatever the max number I displayed. So I less than or equal to max number, that is a condition. Okay, so let's do the same thing using do while loop. So do not think this is just to play around. This is to demonstrate the concepts of while and do while. Okay, so do while, what did I tell you? First time it won't check the condition, right? Here first time the condition will be checked. If this is not satisfied, it won't execute any of the body. So in this case, it will not check anything. So yeah, so you have to have initial. I already made the initial condition, but you have to have the increment also. So let's increment minus minus. Okay, so I'll just decrement this time. Okay, so just to have this example as a separate one, I'll comment these guys till here. So let's increment separately. Integer, let's have j, because when I uncomment, it's going to throw all these errors. So this for j, okay, and let's have k here. So ijk. So even if I uncomment all this, you should be able to execute all of them. So I'm going to start from 500, okay, backward, and display k, which is 500, and every time I will decrement by 1. Okay, so if you want to decrement by 2, k is equal to k minus 2. So k minus 1 minus means k is equal to k minus 1. So that's what it means. So max number is display. Okay, that is a obviously wrong logic. So we just see. So you have to have the condition right. So what should be the condition? I want to display 500, and going backward 1 at a time, display till 0. Okay. So what should be your condition? Don't worry about the max number. It's actually other way, but name doesn't matter here. Okay, the logic is important. So what is the logic? This is the logic. Tell me, what is the logic? While what condition is satisfied, you want to perform the whole thing. 500, 500 minus 1, 500, 149 minus 1, so and so, backward. Okay, so I don't have to display this depend on the max number. So I'll just go k is yes. Tell me, what is the logic? Until I want to go till 0. Let's see. Okay, only 500 is displayed. So logic should be greater than or equal to 0. Right, every time one less, starting from 1. Starting from 500, sorry. So 500 decrement by 1 at a time and until I reach 0. So the logic is greater than or equal to 0. So if I do not put greater than or equal to 0, it will continue to go to negative -1, -2, -3. So you can also have, for example, if I want to display from 500 to -500, okay, decrement each one at a time. 500, 1 for 499, 488, 0, then -1 till -500. So what should be the condition in that case? Easy, right? So just change the condition. This is the logic. This is the syntax. This is the logic. You're applying your mind here. Tell me, I want to display from 500 to -500, decrementing 1 every time. Simple logic. Anyone? So until what point you want to display? That's all matters, right? So it create greater than or equal to -500. Simple. Isn't it? Now let's run and see. You can always debug until you achieve your output. Okay, so that's one way, or just apply the mind right one at the same time and you achieve. So yes, the condition is I want to display it until my number is greater than or equal to -500. So simple. 500 till 0. All right, then -1, -2. So it is actually decrementing. Even though it seems to be incrementing in number, minus sign makes it decrementing. So you already know that math. Okay, so basic point is how to repeat some operations using for loop, while loop, and do while loops, and you have to choose wisely when to use, what to use. Okay, so now you can run all of these with the different sets of values after I share this. Okay, let's move on. Okay, minimum number you already know. So how do you choose number? If number 1 is less than number 2, if condition. So whenever you have to compare, you have to use if condition, else condition, if else condition. If number 1 is less than 2, my minimum number is number 1 because it's less than. Otherwise, minimum is number 2. Okay, so only 2 comparisons. I don't want to go for the switch case. Obviously, I go for if else, simple, and the minimum number is so and so, right? Now, if I have to compare more numbers, which I have given as a homework, remember? So that you have to. Okay, I'm gonna uncomment until this and explain a little bit and execute all of them at once. So I'll just uncomment this display numbers because it's gonna display all the big numbers, 1 to 500 to 500. Okay, so my query is I want to choose maximum out of numbers. You already know. Okay, so that I called in different manner. Instead of calling using the instance conditions, cond is equal to new conditions, cond is the main instance object using main. That is one way. This is called non-static way of calling. You already know. If I use a class name directly, like conditions dot min, that would be static way of calling. So in order to apply the static way of calling, you have to declare the function itself as static. Okay, you already know. I already explained this before. So one more way of non-static way calling is new, using the new keyword, new conditions. So this also makes a new object, new instance. So it is similar to this. Both are same. Okay, so new conditions, and I wanna choose maximum out of these 2 numbers. Simple logic is simple. If something is greater than this, then my first number is max, otherwise the second number. So let's go to the minimum of 3 numbers, little more complicated than the 2 numbers thing, right? So how do you achieve this? 2 at a time. You compare 2 at a time using ampersand and symbol, which is the logical AND. You can also achieve. If number 1 is less than number 2 and number 1 is less than number 3, my minimum is number 1, right? Because this number 1 is less than both number 2 and number 3. So I am checking both at a time. You can also apply in nested ifs. If number 1 is less than number 2, inside if number 1 is less than 3. So without using and. So you have one more condition. Just put bracket here, just like we have seen earlier, right? I would prefer this one because it's more. Or you can also use logic, different logic using the temporary variable and all this. If you have 4 or 5 numbers, this will become more complicated. You cannot repeat this, but you can still do this. Number 1 is less than number 2 and number 1 is less than number 3 and number 1 is less than 4 until whatever number of numbers you have to compare like this. So in this case, my minimum number is number 1. Else if number 2, you fix the number 2 and compare it with other numbers. Number 2 is less than number 1 and number 2 is less than number 3. If you have more and number 2 is less than number 4, blah blah blah. My minimum would be number 2 and I have only one option left, which is a number 3. So you don't have to specify that again. So else part is covered. Okay, now this logic up is still limited. It has limited scope. If you have like 10 numbers to compare, you are given 10 numbers and asked it to choose a minimum out of 10 numbers, it would become very cumbersome if you repeat this using the this logical AND, right? So you have to go for different, but for now we are good. Okay, so that will take care of this. It will choose minimum out of this, and similarly maximum out of same logically it's same thing. You just put greater than symbol and then this maximum is this so and so, and I would just print or return whatever. Okay, let's run till this portion and see the output is coming as desired or not. Okay, the minimum of 5 and 10 is 5, 15, 14, maximum of 50 and so is this. Minimum of 3 numbers is this, maximum of 3 numbers is this, maximum. Okay, so the logic is working perfectly, no issue. Okay, now you can have more examples in a similar fashion, but just since I have to finish the Java today, we'll finish and tomorrow we'll start automation. So I'll just quickly move over. Okay. Okay, so this example is a little bit different. I just wanna choose count the letters in a sentence, including the spaces. Okay, so how do you count the letters? Write the logic for counting the letters or the number of letters in a sentence. Okay, and display it onto the console. So this involves string utility. Okay, so that is a string and you have to go letter by letter. So I'll just explain this to you and move. Okay, so you can also choose number of vowels and consonants. So this is a standard interview question in Infosys. So I just made it a part of example. Okay, so initially I declared 2 variables, vowels and consonants, and initialize with 0. So that means my number of vowels is 0 initially and consonants is 0, and I'll increment each time whenever I encounter. So the key is first, just I'm interested in number of numbers. I don't want the case. I'm converting the whole sentence into lowercase. So the string has all these options. String dot to lowercase will convert everything to lowercase. Okay, so my X will be simple so that I can concentrate on the numbers. So let me go to conditions. Okay, this is in different class, math class, right? Okay, so here I am entering the A as capital letter and okay, only A is capital letter. So I just want to convert everything to small so that I can focus on this thing logic. So since it's a repeatable operation, I will go step by step. First, integer I is equal to 0. I want to go until the length of the whole sentence. Okay. So length of the sentence is given by dot length function. Length function will give you. So I have to first start from the first letter and then go until the end of the sentence. So the length will enable me to do that. Okay, every time increment by 1. So that is standard for loop. Now I want to find out the character at each position. All right, character at each position. I is my first 0th position. Okay, since the index starts from 0, so I'll start from I. And if the character, so the whole sentence is it consists of characters, isn't it? So this is the first character and second character, third character. String is nothing but a collection of characters. All right, so this character 1, character 0, okay, character 1, character 2, character 3, until the length of the length is this, so and so, whatever the length is. So now let's go back to this. So I want to check if, as in when I move, I want to check whether the so and so character at so and so position is as an vowel or consonant. Okay, if it is A, E, I, O, U, it's a vowel. If it is anything other than that, it's a consonant. Simple as that. So I'm just simply checking right here if character is equivalent to A, or character equivalent to E, or character is equivalent to I or O or U, then I am simply incrementing vowels by 1. Okay, because I want to find out what is the number of vowels in a given sentence, right? So initialize with 0. So if I encounter any of this, so my first letter is A, right? So this condition is satisfied. Then it will increment vowels by 1. So I have number of vowels 1 at this point of time. Okay. Else if it comes to this, now consonants or special characters or whatever is here. So since I am only interested in consonants, I will ignore the special characters. So the second letter was in the sentence was space, right? So obviously that is not neither vowel nor consonant, is special character. So if x dot character at I, which is 0 or 1, is A or E or I or O or U. Okay, so do you see anything missing here? Any logic missing? X dot character at I is already termed as CH, right? So I am repeating this, so I shouldn't have to do this, right? And if CH is equals to A, it's already vowel, so you have to put a negative term. If it is not equal to A or not equal to E, not equal to O, then it will be termed as consonant. Okay, so you can change that here. X dot character at I want to find out character at certain position, so which is already in the variable called ch. So I can use ch. That is not a flaw, but it is just to optimize. Okay, so if it is equals to A, obviously it is covered as oval. Okay, so what you have to cover if it is not equal to, right? Not equal to A, or not equal to E, or not equal to I, not equal to, you can put this logic in any which way, but this is one of the ways. So you repeat that ch is not equal to A or ch is not equal to E, then it is obviously consonant, but you have to check the special character also. So special character is not considered as vowel or consonant. You exclude that, then you can move on. Else if all automatically makes it, so you don't have to mention else. Let's just put, I just want to make this simple. So let's remove else consonants plus, or let's call this non-vowels, right? Because consonants are, I mean, spaces are not part of consonants. So let's make it non-vowels. So I'm going to display vowels and non-vowels. And you can actually bifurcate consonants and special characters separately, which will take more time. So I just want to cut this short. Okay, save it. So finally, vowels is printed, and you can also print non-vowels. So non-vowels includes consonants as well as special characters. Just remember, non-vowels means consonants plus. So if you are interested, you can split this. Separately display the consonants as well as special characters. It involves just little more logic. So I'll leave that to you guys and just print non-vowels. Okay. It's okay. So I just want to shoot till this point. I'll comment this. So minimum, and okay, everything else will be executed, including, okay, perfect. Let's execute. Okay, so our logic actually executed as there are 11 vowels and non-vowels 30. So just check manually, is it correct? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. Perfect. 11 vowels. And the remaining ones are consonants actually. That includes this space and all this. Okay. Okay. So just to check, I'll just include the x dot length also. Length of sentence is, so how do you determine length? Obviously x dot length. So whatever is I'm passing, that string dot, what is the function available? So I can have whole lot of functions make use of, right? So out of this I'm gonna choose length. So if I wanna choose index of, it will give me index of, what is the index, 0th or whatever letter. So you can use those. Let's run this again and see. Okay, so I just want to see 41 total length minus 11, which is 30. So perfect. Okay, so let's move on to different. So the main purpose of these examples are to enable you to apply some logic and make use of the concepts of core Java. Okay, so displaying is over anyway. So simple example of any arithmetic is just want to try to find out a perimeter of triangle, okay, which is all sides added. Okay, so side 1, side 2, side 3. Okay, so what is the perimeter? Side 1 plus side 2 plus side 3. Simple logic. Same thing. So if I enter all sides, perimeter would be sum of all sides and display that. That is one example. And next is perimeter of a rectangle. How do we determine? The length and width multiplied by 2. That will give. That is the math, right? So I am passing length and width 9 centimeters or 13 centimeters, and 2 multiplied by length plus 2 multiplied by width will give you the perimeter of rectangle. So the logic you have to apply the same, 2 multiplied by length plus width. Okay, and display it. And subtraction you already know, so I don't want to go over this. I'm just going to go over the last and final example in this simple interest. So okay, so you already know simple interest formula. What is the simple interest formula? PRT, principal, rate, and time, right? So the everybody knows its formula is PRT divided by 100. So I can make this as part of arguments also. I can enter the PRT at the runtime and ask you to calculate the simple interest. Here this is very hard coded, so let's simply change this integer. So integer is very uncommon, so you can have floating points. So I'll take double principal, double rate, and double time also. Okay, because time can be like 2 years, so and so months or whatever. So let's take in years, but if you want to go for 2 years 6 months, you can say 2.5. okay, and instead of hard coding here, I'll just pass it from the runtime. So principal, rate, and time. I think it's a principal, right? I don't know. Principal, I guess, yeah. Spelling mistake. Okay, so the rate of interest is value, which is PRT, P multiplied by R multiplied by T divided by 100, and I'm also returning this. Okay, so let's simply go to math test. So the reason why it is showing this here is I'm calling this without passing in an argument, right? So simple interest principal, let's say 1000.50, and rate would be 4.8, and term would be, term is time, let's call 5 years, 6 months. Okay, let's calculate. Okay, so there are any errors? Probably it's okay. So what is the error here? I am accepting all doubles and return type is float, right? Flows, it's unable to do it in float. So let's all have floats here. That way there is no mismatch. Okay, so no mismatch. Okay, so since we are passing doubles, right? Okay, let's have all doubles only instead of floats. Okay, so all you have to do is, oh, it changed all of this. Float, double, and let's have this double. That way there is no issue also. Chain method type. Okay. Okay. Now let's run this. Okay, so the simple interest is so and so. It is calculated. Okay, so these are all examples for different conditional statements and loops. I will also show you one example quickly before going to complex concepts. Enum test. So the enum test is actually to create enums. For example, just think of it as a I want to just enter. Let's say there are 50 states in USA, right? Like AR stands for Arkansas and NY stands for New York. Okay, so it's think of it as abbreviations and full forms. Okay, so I just have created a enum called user status, pending, active, inactive, deleted. Okay, and another enum called operations plus, minus, time, divided by, times multiplication, and calculate the plus. So when I say plus, it's x plus y, whatever I enter. Minus means x minus y. Times means multiplication, and divided by x by y. Okay, and default is if I do not enter any of plus, minus, multiplication, divided by, it's gonna throw assertion error. Okay, so this is part of JUnit, unknown operations and assertion error. You can also use assertion functions as part of asset equals. I'll show you in automation. Okay, so I have declared two enums and defined them. One is user status and one is operations. Okay, now let's see how do we use these enums in an enum test. Okay, so sysout user status dot active. Okay, the user status is enum name and dot active its value. Okay, so this will print the enum status active. Okay, so this is just to make you can easily call the active status from the, it's just one of way of making the constants instead of constants. Since you have different statuses, active, pending, suspended, whatever, then it's easier to go for enum rather than constants. Okay, and operations. So I want to, okay, this is simplest example in enum. Okay, if I want to use operations plus dot calculate, okay, plus means addition 1 plus 2 and it will return me 3. Okay, so the result. So this is using enum. Okay, how do you use enum? In order to just print. Okay, this is just for printing, and this is example is for calling. Okay, and I want to repeat this. Okay, and how do we looping? So we have already seen for loop for initial value, condition, and increment, right? Similarly, I want to loop in some statement or some operation for all the values in enum. Okay, so user status has how many statuses? Active, pending, all those, right? So user status I am asking it to repeat for all the values of user status. So this is one way. This is just like a collection, repeat for all values. Okay, so user status and print all the statuses basically. Okay, whatever the statuses are there, pending, active, inactive, deleted, it will print all. So without having to print separately, I am using the for loop to print all of these using for loop, but different for loop. So this for loop you don't have to remember again syntax. When you say for and control space, it will give you 4 or 5 options. Okay, so I have this is the first I have already shown you, right? For integer I is equal to 0, increment, condition, and initialization, condition, and increment. Now this example is same thing but using for the arrays. Okay, for collections. Okay, I think this example is collections. Yeah, kind of collections. Iteration. Oh, no, not that one. This one. Yeah. So I am repeating for all arguments. So the colon will repeat for all arguments. So that is different syntax. Okay. So we are going similar. We are using the similar thing. So enum, I want to repeat or I want to display all the values of enum. So simply enum name and status and dot values. Dot values will retrieve all the values from the enum. Okay. So let's run this and see, and by means of output we'll go over again. Okay, so first I want to display simple for one of the enum values. So what is the enum? User status. Okay, just control and go to the user status, and I want to display, let's say, deleted. Okay, user status enum name dot value. Okay, single value, enum name and dot active. Okay, so that just prints active. So you can ask, what is the big deal about it? So the big deal is you are just storing it as a constant instead of constants. Since these are all similar grouped together, similar type of constants, I am putting it in this in enum. Okay, that is the only difference. No complexity about it. Just you have to understand the usability, when to use this. That's all. How do I call a function kind of thing? So I declared operation and defined different operations, plus, minus, times, and divide. Right? These are the enums. So I am using switch case. I am making use of what plus means. Plus means x plus y. Minus means x minus y, and returning the appropriate value, just returning right away. Okay, so how do we call the methods? Plus dot calculate, and I'm passing this 1, 2, and it will simply return me 3.0. Simple. One more is looping. So simply I want to print or make use of. The print is just the easiest to demonstrate one concept, but you can have whatever you want here. I can put some more logic based on the requirement. So what requirement is in your project, you have to apply that here. So this is just one simple way of doing it. So I just want to print all the values of the user status enum. So what are the values? Pending, active, inactive, deleted, right? So it will just print. So using this for loop. So this is the syntax: colon dot values. Dot values, whatever the values are there, it will repeat this status for all of them. 1, 2, 3, 4. So all these values are printed. Okay, so one more example. So let's have enum. Okay, so public enum will tell it it's an enum. Enum is a keyword. So normally how do we declare functions? Public void so and so name, blah blah blah, right? So instead you have enum and enum name. So let's have states. Okay. I'm not going to go over all the states, but few of them. Okay, so states, let's say, like I said, AR, NY for New York. Tell me more. What are the states? NJ, New Jersey. MO for Missouri. PX for Texas. Okay, just for the timing, just 5 will be. You can have more. Okay, so my query is, if I enter AR, it should display Arkansas. Okay, the full form. NY, New York. NJ, New Jersey. Simple example. Okay, so I'll just make a switch case similar to this. Public string full form. Let's call it full form in the sense state full form. Okay, then I am going to enter string short form. Let's say. Okay, short is a keyword, so be careful. Switch case, you can use also, if else, it's up to you. Okay, switch case. So switch this refers to the current one. I already told you. Case so and so, return so and so, right? Case is AR, return what? Return string. So I wanna return and then breakout. So similarly, you can define all other like this, and finally have switch case. Finally have break default. Okay, I have to add return statement at the very end. Return statement at the very end. So if I return like this, yeah, this should be okay too. Okay, so return statement at the very end. Return is already here, but I can also. Okay, so let's just return not short form output. So I'll just make output. Okay, so then finally I'll return the output. So I'd have to declare the output here equals null initially. Okay. All right. So let's create more cases. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One is here now. Okay, so default cases, if I do not enter any of these values, okay, so it's gonna throw new assertion error, unknown operation. Okay, so let's have that. Or you can say whatever, you can just sys out. So instead I will throw. Okay, so since exception handling is not yet covered, so after this I will cover, but I'll just throw new assertion error. So it will just throw assertion error. And then break. Okay, why it is throwing error on break? Okay. Okay, fine. So our enum is states and full form is a function name. So let's call this. Okay, how do we call this? Since I'm returning, I'll store it in a string and put equals states dot. Okay, I want to call AR dot full form Enum Test. Okay. Oh, okay. So since I'm not printing anything, it won't print out anything. So let's print. Okay, so it will print the full form. So you can have more of this. Let's move quickly to another concept called exception handling, which is very important in automation also. So basically, exception handling is used for if you do unwanted operation or undesirable operation, then in which case what you have to do, what you want the system to do. Okay. So that is called exception handling. We achieve this by using try catch or try catch finally. Okay. So if whatever operations you want to perform, you put inside the try block. Okay. And it will be tried. If everything goes fine, it will execute and move on. If something goes wrong, if you're doing some undesirable operation inside the try block, it will enter the catch block. Okay. And you can throw exception or print the whole stack trace to the console, or you can do whatever you want to in the catch. Okay. And then you can also abruptly end the execution there, or you can continue. You have the option. So if you want to just print the whole stack trace to the console and move on, you just do that, e.print stack trace. Okay. Or if you want to abruptly end this, stop the execution, you can throw the exception. Throw is a keyword. So then it will stop. And if you want after this execution, even if some exception occurs or even if some exception does not occur, you want to perform some operation at any cost, you will put those statements in the finally block. So the name itself suggests these lines of code will be executed at any cost. Okay, so you can do this. So the example automation wise, the realistic example would be, I want to close the browser at any cost, right? After the execution is done, even if this execution is performed successfully or exception is thrown, I want to just kill the browser instance or driver instance in the other words. I'll just tear down those browsers in the final block. So that's one of the realistic examples, okay, from the automation point of view. So like I said, the code in the try block will be executed, and in any case exception occurs, it will enter the catch block, right? You have the option to throw or not throw, and then it will enter the final block at any cost. So whatever statements you want to execute at any cost, you will put in the final block. We will see these examples now. If you throw the exception execution will be aborted, okay, right? And if you do not throw exception, execution will continue. You have the two options of these. And there are two types. This is the hierarchy. The topmost is java.lang.object, and it has throwable. Okay, the child is throwable, and throwable has children errors and exceptions. Errors will occur at compile time. Exceptions will occur runtime. So what is the best example for errors? We just see. If we enter like something like a typo, right? It will right away throw the error. This is the error. Okay. What is the error? It will not compile. It will not let you compile the code if you have compilation errors. That means that you will not be able to execute them at all, right? And you must correct these compilation errors before executing them. Okay. But even if you have everything right in the code, no errors, no red signs, okay, the yellow signs are warnings, so you can ignore them, but no red sign, still runtime some errors are gonna occur. Okay, these errors are called exceptions. So these are mostly related to the undesirable operations that are performed in the code. Then it will throw exceptions. So there are two types of throwable: errors and exceptions. One occurs at the compilation time, the other occurs at the runtime. Okay. Now, in order to, we can always rectify errors just by looking at the code itself. You see the red marks, you correct them. Okay, but how do we rectify the exceptions? Okay, yes, you can also handle them. You cannot rectify them, you can handle them. Okay, that's why it is called exception handling. Okay, how we can handle the exceptions? Using the try catch block or try catch finally block. Okay, so all you have to do is put your piece of code inside the try block if you suspect that the operation is gonna cause some exceptions. Okay, so how do you suspect? Again, based on the experience. So you suspect prior. If you do not suspect, if you debug, it will throw the exception. Okay, so you are gonna see the exception anyway, so it doesn't matter if you suspect or not, so it's gonna throw. Then what you're gonna do, you come back to your code and put that piece of code inside the try block. Now we are gonna see that. Okay, now there are some types of exceptions like arithmetic exception, IO exception, input output exception, arrays exception. Okay, so the most likely you're gonna get arithmetic exception in terms of divide by 0. The undesirable operation in this case is divide by 0. So what is that? If you divide something by 0, in reality it's gonna be undefined, or it's gonna return infinite in math sense, right? So in Java sense, it's gonna throw the number format exception, divide by 0 exception. Okay, so if you suspect, you have defined some operation, like in before we have declared divide function and defined, right, x divided by y, and then if I pass y as 0, it's gonna throw exception, right? So there I suspect, hey, if I enter y 0, then there is a possibility of getting this exception. Then what I would do, I have to insert this particular line of code inside the try block and x catch block and finally do something. Okay, IO exception is if I am trying to read an Excel spreadsheet, which we are going to do in the automation, then the file itself doesn't exist there, then obviously it's going to throw file not found exception. Then you have to use the IO exception, how to handle them. And array index out of bounds exception is array's length is 5 and you're trying to print the 6th index of array, which is obviously going to throw exception, like array index out of bounds exception. Okay, so I'll just explain this simplest example and I'll show you in Eclipse. Okay, so just like I explained you before, divide. Okay, I am dividing one number by another. Okay, I can divide any number by any number except for 0. I cannot divide any number by 0. If I do, it's gonna be undefined in math world, but it's gonna throw exception in the Java world. So systemout.println, the quotient is x divided by y. This is my simplest sysout. Okay, now in the main, this is my library function. Okay, now I'm going to call it in the main function like this. Divide 4 comma 0. So what it's going to do, 4 divided by 0. All right, now 4 divided by 2, no problem, it will return 2. So it will just return the quotient is 2, blah blah blah. If I say 4 comma 0, 4 divided by 0 by is undefined. Okay, and it will have to be handled properly. So hence I put the divide function inside the try block like this. So it will be tried, and if 4 comma 2 will be tried, no issue, it won't enter catch block and it will enter final. In the finally, I'm just printing something. Like I said, it all depends what your requirement is. I can tear down the browser or whatever, but in just for the core Java example, I'm just printing final block is executed just to show it that it entered the final block. Okay, in this case, try block will be executed, no issues, then it won't enter catch block, it will directly come to final block. This is the positive scenario. For example, if I enter 0 like this, so what would happen? You cannot divide a number by 0. Okay, the operation is illegal. So what it would do, it would be tried and exception is occurred. Okay, and it will enter the catch block because of the exception. Now in the exception block, I can do whatever I want to. Like I said, in the exception block, I have two options. I can throw the exception or I can choose not to throw the exception. If I throw the exception, the execution will be aborted. If I choose not to throw the exception, the execution will continue, by printing something to the console, you can still continue. So that's up to you. And again, it depends what your requirement is, why you choose to throw or not throw. Okay, so this is just to print the whole stack trace. Whole stack trace means what is a different exception matter that occurred, including the exception name, exception occurred at so and so line, and exception content. Everything will be printed to the console so that we can investigate further. That is process of debugging. Okay, same thing. I can print e.toString will print in English. Okay, and this is for throwing. This is just for printing. This is for throwing. If I say throw e, it will throw the exception and just enter the final block and abort the test case here. Okay, it will not do any further. So you can throw or not throw. Okay, so exception, you can have different exceptions. Exception is the topmost. If I want to throw the exception specifically, like now number format exception, I can throw it, or IO exception or array index of bounds exception. I can specifically say here. So if I mention exception, that means, hey, any exception, you do this. Okay, so I prefer exception. So let's do the same example. So I'm going to go over the exception handling. Okay, same thing, simple exception handling. Two numbers, one is 10, one is 0. Okay, so try, I'm just dividing one number by other and printing that resultant output. Okay, and simply catch. Okay, in the catch, I'm just printing, not throwing. So this is not throwing. This is throwing. Okay, it is commented, so it's all right. Okay, so initially there is no, oh, there is final block also. Okay, so final block, I'm just printing something, performed exception handling and so and so. Okay, simple example. Okay, so initially I'll take the positive example. I'll divide this by 2. Okay, so let me execute. So output is 5. 10 divided by 2 is 5, and it entered the final block. So this is the try block. And okay, so let me just put these out so that we know exactly what block it. So here, try block, and then if it enters cache block, you would immediately know if it prints cache block. So otherwise it didn't enter cache block. And okay, let's just put final block. Okay, let's re-execute. So it just entered try block and performed division, no problem, 5, and it entered final block. Okay, now let's make this 0 so that it will actually enter the cache block. Now let's see what happens. Okay, so now you see it entered try block and it entered cache block and it also entered final block. So try block, what did it do? It tried to divide. It entered try block. Yes, try block. Now it tried to divide 10 by 0. Now what it would cause? It would cause this to enter the cache block. So it didn't even print out the output because output is not possible, obviously. So it entered the cache block. Now cache block is printed. Okay. Now what I'm trying to do? I am trying to print the whole stack trace. Okay. What is the exception? Java.lang.arithmetic exception, divide by 0. So at exactly line number 12, this occurred. So if I click on this, yeah, so see, you cannot apply this, you cannot perform this operation when the dividend is 0. Okay, so that's the operation. So if I want to print in elaborated fashion, then I can simply sort dot boosting. Let's try this again. Okay, same thing, but it will also say the same thing. Even if I do not say e dot toString, this will take care of everything. E dot print stack trace. So this is the exception that occurred in the cache block. Divide arithmetic expression by 0. Divide by 0. And where did it occur? It occurred at here. So you have to click on this in order to take this. Now what you have to do? You have to know, okay, I cannot enter 0. Okay, so that's wrong input. Okay, now for example, I have something else after the final block. Sys out after final block. Let's see if this is executed or not. Okay, so what do you think? Will it be executed? Yes, it will be executed because I did not throw the exception, right? I just did print out the exception stack trace to the console. So enter try block, okay, catch block entered, and it threw the exception and it entered final block, and also it executed, continue to execute. So there is no problem. Even if you have some other lines below, it will execute. Now let's see what happens if I throw the exception. Okay, now the after final block will not be displayed. That means it won't, it would abruptly stop here the execution. So let's see. Okay, so try, catch, and finally that's it. No more, it just stops here. So that is a basic concept of try, catch, and finally. So let's see one more example. So this is conceptually this is important to understand, but once you understand, you can use it wherever you want to. Same different example I tried to put in a different fashion. So I defined a divide function, okay, and in the same class also I can have main, okay, instead of different class, and divide 4 by 0, either print stack trace, and just toString, do not throw, and finally same example but divide. And you can have different exceptions thrown, like file not found exception, or but we have to have more utility function. So I'll show as part of automation. So in implicitly I'll show that. So let's run this in a different fashion. Okay, so divide by 0 exception. I did not put any sys out, so no problems. It just tried to divide 4 by 0 and it didn't, it couldn't, and enter the cache block, and it printed the stack trace. And since final block will be executed all the time, so it will be executed. If I throw this also, no problem, it will still enter. Even if I throw or don't throw, it will enter final block at any cost. But the later on statements will not be executed if I throw. Okay, so that I also already demonstrated here. So that is it. That is the main usage of try, catch, finally. So in order to handle these exceptions, you just put your piece of code inside try catch block. So you can put it anywhere, it doesn't matter. So for example, I suspect that the simple interest is gonna throw exception. Okay, so I just put inside try block. So you can remember. If you don't remember, you just surround with try catch. Like this. So what I'm doing is, if I'm just trying this simple interest and catching this exception. If nothing goes wrong, it won't catch, it won't enter the catch. And if something goes wrong here, then only it will enter the catch. So it's always better to include the try catch for your piece of code. Okay, so that's that, and I have some more examples actually listed out here. You can go through this. I'm going to share, since today is the last class of Core Java, so I'm going to share everything. Regular expressions I will show you as part of automation, but I'll just explain you. So regular expressions are to just generalize some strings. So if any alphabet is, you are going to indicate any alphabet, then this is the regular expression. Any number is indicated by 0 to 9, this, or \d. Alphanumeric, if anything is alphanumeric, like alphanumeric, including alphabets and numbers, then you can indicate by this. This is a regular expression. Any number of digits, okay, plus any digits from 0 to 1, or 0 to many, or 1 to many. And starting position is indicated by caret sign, ending position is indicated by $sign, and n number of digits. So example will be like 4, 3. So there are 3 number of digits, right? So this can be indicated by how 0 to 9 and 3, exactly 3 number of digits. So this is the your expression. This is the equivalent regular expression. Special characters you can demonstrate by this special characters. Non-alphanumeric, this is like no, this is starting position. Special characters you can indicate any special characters like, and date, okay, you can write date regular expression like this. So any date that is in the format of mmdd y, okay, so this would be the regular expression. We will explain this later. Any you can also write URLs regular expression. You can also write emails regular expression. Okay, so I just mentioned here so that you can just give you a heads up what's coming next. Okay, so for more practice for you guys, I listed out some more simple to complex examples in the core Java. So you can actually take this, and this includes both question and answer. So do not think, I mean, you have to practice. Just look at question and try it yourself, and just look at the answer and match it with yours. So if it is match, or you can copy paste. So simple. Initially, I just want to print something to console. How do you print? Using system.println, right? Hello world. Okay, that's simple example. And I want to declare Boolean values. Boolean. How do you declare Boolean? Boolean variable name, default value. So the example would be Boolean. B1 is equal to true or false. The only values that Boolean contains is true or false. And for example, I want to compare Boolean B3. If 10 is greater than 2, is it true? 10 is greater than 2 is true. So if 10 is greater than 2, execute this, and 10 is greater than 2 is false, execute this. So this is like if else condition. 10 is greater than true if, then B3 is equal to true, else false. Okay, so this is like, this is called ternary operator. Ternary operator. So similar to if and else. If is greater than 2, then B3 equals true, else B3 equals false. Okay, so this line is similar to this. So now you can understand exactly. If ternary operator is just in single line, I can mention if and else. If 10 is greater than true, B3 is true, otherwise false. Same thing. These both are equivalent. Okay, now you can try that. You just copy this code and put it in the Eclipse. Okay, create a separate class, and you can practice more. And okay, all you have to do is you have to create a class and test, and make sure you have the main function. Okay, so otherwise it won't be executed. So I'm leaving that to you. And byte, how do you declare a byte? Byte is a data type, right? So the syntax is byte variable name is equal to default value. So byte b1 is equal to 100. So it is less, it has less scope than the integer. So it will, integer has more scope, like I told you, minus to 20,000, 200k to plus 200 or something. So I'm just declaring, initializing value and printing. Simple example so that you can see the output right away. And how do you declare a character variable? So character char is data type, variable name, and default value. This is the syntax. Okay, this is how you declare variable. And range of character is, just remember, 0 to 65,000. Okay, it's a 16-bit type and used to represent Unicode characters only. So char ch1 equals to a, one single character. Okay, ASCII code equivalent to a is capital A 65. So you can print vice versa. You can print ASCII code of number, and you can print the equivalent number of a character also. So here character variable ch1 is a, and for 65, okay, so the equivalent is a. So automatically it will print for 65 ASCII code. And double you already seen. Okay, so when do you use double? Double if you are going to deal with the fractional part also, like decimal part. So it is a 64-bit double precision type, and when fractional precision is required. Okay, so the syntax is double variable name is equal to default value, and example is double d is equal to so and so value, and you can print to the console like this, or you can play with this. You can do some operations with double. And moving forward, floating point. So floating point is also same thing. There are some typos, but if you actually practice in Eclipse, you would have to read them. So okay. So all you would do is just suffix it with f. That makes it a floating point. And integer you already know. When do you have to declare variable integer? When you are dealing with the integral part only, no fractional part. So the range of integer is like, okay, this is the range, biggest range. Okay, -2 plus, and integer variable name default value. And how do you declare and define assign value? Initialize value integer j is equal to 100. So this is how you do it, and you already know these are simplest examples. Long you already know. So long is a broader scope than integer, but without fractional portion. So for example, if you are dealing with milliseconds, you have to declare it as a long, like time in milliseconds. So new date dot get time will return you whole time in milliseconds. We'll discuss about this date utils later. But long type has to be, if you're dealing with longer than integer, then you declare it as long. Short is short. The limitation of short is this. Only these from -32,000 to +32,000. If you are only dealing with these numbers, you can declare them as short. Short is the variable type. Okay. Data type is short. And moving on. String to integer conversions. How do you convert integer dot to string? So if your integer, which is part of string, but you want to convert it to a string, then use the integer dot to string. Okay, just try out these, and we will see more of this anyway in automation. So examples of more vowels and consonants we have already seen. So go through this. This is another way of finding out the number of vowels and consonants in number using switch case. If character is either A, E, or I, O, U, then it is an vowel. If it is either 0 to 1, 2, 3, 9, it is a number. Anything other than is a consonant. Okay. Also, you use special characters. Okay. If it is special, if it is neither vowel nor number nor special characters, obviously the default case is consonant. So this is a good example for that. So you can have this instead of that explained earlier, which is a logic way something is missing. So this is a full and final example for vowels and consonants thing. And comparison operators we have already seen. Graded between two numbers. Yeah, so you can practice this. So the starting portion is this. Okay, do not get mixed up. And ending portion is this. I have a PDF for the same, so I'll share the PDF with you, which has all the formatting correct, so that you don't have to worry about this. This is just textual part. Okay, so simple interest example, same thing. If you're passing principal, time, and rate, and ask you to calculate interest, you just PTR by 100. Okay, that example. Age calculation. If you're given the date of birth like year, month, and date, and you're asked to calculate the age, how do you calculate? Using calendar class, but just give it a try and see for yourself. I will teach more about these date utilities in the automation, so do not worry about the understanding. So just try to understand this. Logic wise it will execute and everything, but we will go over this in the automation number for. Okay, so try catch block. Using try catch block, how do you handle exceptions in the calendar? So the calendar class is much more complicated. Okay, so don't worry if you don't understand. I will explain this in the automation because it's needed in the automation anyway. Okay, same thing. How do you calculate tax, and how do you read the line from the buffer? Try to show. And how do you remove the vowels from a sentence? Simplest example, just for practice. Okay, go over this. And mostly I try to use simple switch cases and if conditions and for loops. That's all. So conceptually it should be good to go. And how do you print the multiplication table? We have already seen. Okay, so in different exact example I showed you, multiplication table of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So using the 2 for loops, 1 for loop for the row, 1 for loop for the column. And how do you calculate the interest? It's already done. Okay, so this involves text field, so don't worry, you can ignore, skip this portion. So the complexity is increasing. Multiplication table we are already seeing. Same thing with the different J option pane. So it will actually pop up the a pop-up where you can enter the number. So this will act as a notification pop-up or input pop-up. You can use the J option pane. So if you want to just try out, if you have time, you can just copy paste, then put it in the Eclipse and call this function. That's all. This is a separate class, so you don't have to call this. So you create a class by this name. Okay, so it already has a main function, so no need to call. Directly you can execute. All right. And removing the duplicate. If I enter some numbers, if there are duplicates, it will remove. You can try out this. And finding out the even numbers and odd numbers. So just involves some logic and for loop, that's all. If something is divided by 2, then it would be called an even number. If not, it is called an odd number. So if this is 0, that means something divided by 0 is not equal to 0, then it would be odd number. That means in simplest terms, if the number is not divided by 2, then it's odd. So the logic is this one. If I divide by 2, the remainder, this is the remainder, right? So remainder is 0, then it's even number. Remainder is not 0, then it's odd number. Simple. So logically you have to think like that. So most 80% logic is required, 20% is just syntax and concept. And how do you display prime numbers from so and so number to so and so 100? Then this is the logic. So prime numbers you already know, right? 1, 3, 5, these are all prime numbers. So how do you display them? So use the logic. Something is divided by 0, but 1 is also prime number, so and so. And palindrome everybody knows. Okay, so what is a palindrome? Find out. These are all basic examples on Java. And arithmetic operations we have already seen, so I am skipping. Decrement operator, less than, greater than. Okay, plus, plus, minus, minus. Okay, that you can. And modulus operator, okay, using percentage operator, you can display the modulus operation. That is the remainder. Something is divided by something. What would be the remainder? And loops we have already seen. You can practice more. For loop, while loop, do while loop. and comparing two numbers, done. And if and else statements. If some condition is satisfied, do something else, do something else. And multiple ifs, if, else if, and else. Okay. So otherwise, if you have more multiple ifs, then use a switch case. And switch and if you want to break out of some if condition, you can use a break. Okay. So if condition is there, variable is equal to 3, and if so, and this is the for loop, right? Now I'm running for loop from 0 to 5, let's say, but I don't want to execute some lines for 3. Variable is 3. When I'm incrementing 1, 2, 3, I don't want to, but when it is reached, I want to break out of the loop. So you can just say break outer loop will be broken. So basically you come out of the loop. So you can do that. It's not important, break loop, so don't worry about that, but just in case you just have to know conceptually, you can try that. Okay, so that's all. And finally, I just mentioned some shortcuts. Control click will make you go to that function definition. Control I, indentation is nothing but Control A, and it will select all. And for example, if I have this unaligned, misaligned or something, okay, so what it will do is Control A, Control I will realign so that readability is proper, okay. And if you want to refactor, that means rename, but change all the names wherever it is called, use Alt Shift R, or you can also right click. So the shortcut is this, or you can read. And you can move the function using Alt Shift P, and Control Alt H will show you wherever the function is called, call hierarchy. And these are the debugging shortcuts: F5, step into F6, step over F7, step return. And yeah, so these are some tidbits you can go over. Okay, so that would be the end of Java class for now. Okay. But we will use the Java in automation using Selenium WebDriver, so don't worry. We will go over these concepts many times. Okay, but just for the conceptual wise, I would recommend you to practice these examples that I just gone over. Okay, so that you will get more hands-on. So I will share another PDF. All right. So I will anyway export this whole project and share it in the Google Drive. You can import and practice in your, okay, that you already know. But the examples I just explained you, right, I will share another PDF in the Gmail, and that has more a clearer picture of this. So you can practice. You cannot copy paste from the PDF, but you can just see the PDF and type into your Eclipse and practice more. Okay, guys. So that's all for today. I'll end this session here. That would be the end of the Core Java session also. This concludes the Core Java. And tomorrow onwards, I will start automation, which is a primary focus for you guys, because mostly we have seen manual testing so far, concepts of SDLC, STLC, right? And then followed by testing. You have already seen lab sessions. So in that, you know how do you write test cases practically. And I have shown you database testing and some web service testing. Then Core Java, which is basically all of these concepts we are going to use in the automation, which is main. So we are going to start from tomorrow. So today you practice as much as possible so that you can concentrate on Core Java. So most of the concepts I've already covered. If anything is left over, we'll cover in automation. Like this, JDBC is not covered, so JDBC I'll cover in. Interfaces, okay. Abstract classes, nothing. Concrete classes, these are not required really. Interfaces, I'll just show you quickly. I think, yeah, I have quick interface demo. So interface is nothing but you just declare the function or variable and leave it undefined, okay? And then you can implement it when I implement it. So I'll just quickly show you. This is similar to automation. So WebDriver is an interface. All the functions and methods and variables are just declared and they did not define. So Chrome driver actually picks it up and defines them according to its browser specification. So Google takes care of that, and Firefox driver, Mozilla takes care of that. So similar. So all you have to do is, instead of public class, I would declare it as a public interface. Okay, so this is like main calc. That's my interface name. So now I am just declaring a few variables, okay, integer x, and declaring few methods. These are called abstract methods, okay, public void add and public void sub. Okay, now what I am doing here, I am just declaring it. I am not defining. I am not telling how do you calculate addition, subtraction, right? Now interface is just for that. You just build the building without putting the furniture in. Just think of it like that. Now I want to actually define these, okay, where I can define it in a class. Okay, if you see the symbol, this is the interface I. Okay, this is not a regular class, this is the interface class. Now if I want to implement it, I have to actually implement this main calc. So I can do it in a regular Java class. So my main calc is a interface, and scientific calc is a main calculator. Okay, think of it as a broader perspective. Scientific calculator is where I can only calculate something, like some arithmetic. So in order to do that, what I have to do is, my class scientific calc is implementing main calc. So implements is the keyword. So just like in overriding concept in the in inheritance, the child class extends father class, right? Child class extends the parent class. Likewise, the normal class implements the interface. So implement. Then I am changing this x1 value, which was 10. Now I can override this, right? Now override annotation will override this. This will override previous declaration. So add was just declared and undefined in the main class. So what I'm doing is, I'm just providing declaration. So I'm just printing something, sys out print, and this is a scientific calculator add. Okay. So or I can also provide, if I enter something but I am not entering anything, so this will just print, but I will enter. And sub also I am just defining simply, and multiplication I'm defining. And in the main, I can have the main in the same class also, just to execute simply. And scientific calc, and I'm instantiating it, and main calc also I'm instantiating it, and using this cal, calling the add sub mul. Okay, and using this cal to main calc, I am also calling. So in automation perspective, this is what I was explaining. WebDriver is equal to new Firefox driver. So WebDriver is the interface, and Firefox driver is the class which is implementing WebDriver. Just in similar fashion, this is implementing. So we will just execute and see what the output is. So I am executing scientific calc. I cannot execute the interface. I have to execute the normal class which is implementing the interface. Okay. Now it is executing. So this will be the last because I missed it. I'm just explaining it to you guys. Okay. Now this is a scientific calc add. Okay. So this is implemented. That means it is defined. So I am calling this scientific calc add sub mul. Okay. Scientific calc add sub mul add sub. Okay. This is scientific calc. Even if I call calculate add, it is still calling scientific calc only. Okay. Because it is implemented. It is not implemented in the interface. Interface is just declarations. It's all about just declarations. Only declarations. No definitions. That means no implementations. Okay. Now this was x was 10. So x was 10 is intact though. So when I call x, cal2 at x, its value is 10. But cal1.x will print it as what? 22. x1. Okay. So x1 is printed. Okay. So let's have one more. For example, I have to actually pass two values. So let's have division. Okay. Now I'll pass two integers, x comma integer y. Okay, so now I just declared it. Okay, that means I just build the building, that's it. Now I did not put the furniture inside so that I can make it as an office space or something. So now I'll come here. Okay, now what I'll do, what is the error here? Okay, so since I did not implement it, it will throw that error. Okay, so now I will do override.
I have one question.
Yeah, tell me.
Okay, the interface, WebDriver is interface, and Firefox is what? Could you repeat again?
Firefox is a class which implements a WebDriver. So just think of it as similar. This is the interface, right? This is a WebDriver. Don't worry, I will explain tomorrow. This is the WebDriver, right? WebDriver has all those functions and methods undefined, like this, just declared. Like I want to click a link, so it is not defined how to click link. Just click link is defined. That's it. Click dot click. Then WebDriver, Chrome driver, which is a Firefox Chrome specific driver, Google's driver. What it will do, it will implement it. How do you click a link? Then if I instantiate this driver, this is like a parent, this is like a child. Just think of it. But it is a interface. It is a class which is implementing the interface. Okay. So Firefox driver already implemented interface in WebDriver. Don't worry about this. What I am doing is I am trying to use it. So driver dot find element by xpath dot click. That click, whenever I pass xpath, it will click on that link or button. So that link click method is defined in the Firefox driver, okay, which is implementing the interface WebDriver. So similar to this is just a simple example for understanding, make you understand interface. Okay. Don't worry if you don't understand it completely. Just understand that the interface, we will just declare the methods, okay, like this, and leave them undefined. Am I defining this? How to add, how to subtract, or for that matter, how to click? Public void click. So this will be there in the WebDriver. Okay. Now, how do I click is not explicitly defined. Now, Firefox, Mozilla, or Google takes it, and because it's a browser specific, they will define here. Okay, public void click. Now they will define how do you click, right? Like drive, you have to pass the driver, WebDriver, driver, then driver dot. Don't worry, it won't show because WebDriver is not there. Okay, so we have to import couple of jars. Driver dot find element by xpath. Okay, I'll pass the xpath, which looks like this. Input, right? Input so and so ID equals to some submit. Okay. This is just to show you prematurely. So, and then close this. Then dot click. So the dot click will be performed based on the input I provide, which is xpath, right? Now, how this dot click is defined is part of the class which is implementing the interface, not the interface. So just an example. Okay, I'll just comment this out. Okay, so now you understood, right, how the interface and how the interface can be implemented in another class.
Yes, thank you.
Tomorrow we'll see, don't worry. I know you did not understand completely, even the CA said thank you, but we will see more of this tomorrow. Okay, so this class actually concludes the core Java class. Okay, so any questions in the core Java? You can say any questions right now because tomorrow it's whole and soul automation.
Singam. Hello. Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
Hello.
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
So the thing is, like, there are so many topics in Java actually, like especially for like beginners. So is it possible? Could you like make a list for like essential things, which is really essential for Selenium WebDriver, so that we could practice like those
Selenium,
things
right?
like over
Good
and over.
question. Right. So whatever is required for Selenium WebDriver, the main concepts in the core Java, I have already covered. Okay. So those
No.
topics,
I understand. I understand you covered like there is so many things like that's what I'm saying. So is there anything
I
like which is really necessarily like important? So can you like make a list for like those things? Then
these are the
we
you
could
can
work
see
on it.
right. Yeah, these are the list. Uh, Constructors, I have already covered. Static, non-static, final instances, loops, for loop, while loop, and do while loop, all those, right? For while, do while, and conditional statements for if else, case, while, inheritance, polymorphism. How do you overload a function? How do you what is the overridden function? Exception handling, just now we have seen.
So
String
I have a question like which is out of context.
Go ahead, no problem.
So the thing is, I don't really use Eclipse. I use NetBean. Is it okay?
Yeah, NetBeans, BlueJ, or Eclipse, or IntelliJ IDEA, anything is fine. The tool does not matter.
Oh,
As
okay. No, I'm just like curious. Like, is it okay if I use anything other than Eclipse? Because I'm used to on it like on NetBeans.
right, yeah, absolutely. As long as you can, are you importing my shared project, or are you writing separately? I mean,
No,
are you?
I'm writing myself.
Okay, then that is fine. Maybe if you import.
Because I import your share project on Eclipse and it's putting me error because of those like packages or thing,
That's what I mean.
packages and things. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
So I skip those and I'm just taking the concept and I'm writing on NetBean.
Right. You can actually, for example, if you want to see enum class example, right? You can actually go inside and instead of just copy paste, this will work. But the whole import export do not work if you change the.
No, I did like whole import export and it doesn't really.
Correct.
It's throwing a lot of errors.
Because of the different structure, Eclipse uses like this structure, source and bin, and the structure differs from the tool to tool. Like if you're using NetBeans. But mostly I would still recommend the Eclipse because most of the projects are going to use Eclipse. NetBeans is least used. So if it is open source, 90% of the projects use Eclipse. But if it is a license based, they will use IntelliJ, which is much more better than Eclipse, but needs license.
No, like the thing is, it doesn't matter really because I just write the code over there. That's all. I feel comfortable over there.
Absolutely. Yeah, it really doesn't matter. You can use NetBeans, no problem at all.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, sure. So any questions other than the tools like logic related or anything I missed, you can tell me, I'll tell you. But don't worry, I'll anyway cover it in automation because these are the topics which are going to go over and over again in automation. So no need. So I will share with you a PDF. I think I have the PDF right now. So that has the examples, the basic to complex examples that I've just gone over, right? So maybe you can actually like you can see the PDF and type it in, okay, instead of copy paste. Copy paste is not possible. So let me see Java reading material. Probably I have actually stored it somewhere, but don't worry, I'll send it to you. Automation. I have actually somewhere code Java. Oh yeah, right there here. So this has all the examples, which are same thing. The notepad has all those, but this is like better version of it. Let me open it. Probably it will open. Okay. Okay, same examples, but yeah, so you can just look at it and look at the example. The red one is a question. Write your own program. Then I would suggest you to compare it with this one and then correct your example. So that's a good practice. And output is given in the blue color. Okay. So Boolean, how do you declare a Boolean? Everything that is not non-executable is commented out and executable is outside. So Boolean B1 is equal to true. This is how you declare a Boolean and initialize. And then this is a ternary operator that I explained. And moving on, I'll just skip over to another one. Oh, don't go for the message boxes which are not really required. How do you calculate income tax? So you know how do you calculate income tax? You just go with your intuitive, and income is input and so, and then write your program. Instead, I will go for the simplest example. Where is it? Java integer example is anyway very simple. This is the oval consonant digits example. Okay, so you can practice. So you know how to do it. Whether the entered character is oval or consonant or special characters, that's what you have to determine. So best bet is to use a switch case. So if it is either A, E, or I, O, U, I am saying this is not for the number of ovals consonant example that I showed you, right? This is to find out whether the enter character is an oval consonant or special character or number. So if it is A, E, I, O, U switch case, then you say this character is a oval and break out. Okay. Then if it is 0 to 9, then this is a number. If it is anything this, it's a special characters. Okay. Then if it is anything other than that, it is just a consonant. Okay, I think there is something wrong here. So if special character should be like that, I put exclamation at the rate, you put all of those, not V and TBR. Okay, so there are some typos in this, but since your practice on your own, this just acts as a reference for the core Java examples. You just do not take it as is, but conceptually this is a good way. Okay, just look at the example, look at the question in red, try it on your own and match it with this one and match it with the output. Okay, so I'm going to share this with you guys too. Okay guys, so that will be the end of today's class. So catch you tomorrow same time with automation. Great. Any more questions? So we'll call it a day. Okay then, so everybody good. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye. So if anybody is interested in taking the same project from GitHub, okay, so I'm also putting the GitHub. You can take it from there. Everybody knows GitHub, right? Don't worry, in automation project onwards, we will share the project from GitHub, okay? So for now, you just go with the Google Drive thing, all right? So unnecessary complications otherwise. Okay, so I'll end this class today here. Okay. Exit. Any more questions?